It's time, Fort Wayne. Your sports, your station. It's the Sports Rush with Brett Rump. Covering all the topics that hit a nerve here in the Summit City.
Clark, 11 yards, touchdown.
Only on 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM. Now here's your host, Brett Rump.
The greatest, most interesting, most important person of all time.
You are incredible.
Older than one.
Yeah, well, you're half right.
What is this, amateur hour?
This is going to be huge.
I think this is going to be our finest hour.
Just when I think you've said the stupidest thing ever, you keep talking.
I think that's the worst thing I've ever heard.
That boy ain't right.
The simplest way to put it, I have problems.
Welcome to the alleged show.
Y'all ready for this?
Thank God it's...
The work week is over. It's time to head into a sports weekend, and we're doing it with the Sports Rush, your daily local sports fix 4 to 6. I am Brett Rump. He is Adam Lundy, and you are connected on the Parkview Sports Medicine text line at 260-447-8500. Big hour as we wrap up the week, almost wrap up March. We got one more day of March that we're going to have on Monday before we get to April.
Crazy.
Hard to believe that we're going to have baseball 1 week from tonight, downtown Fort Wayne at Parkview Field.
I'm ready for that.
Weather permitting.
True that.
Yeah. But anyway, it's a big hour. Scott Agness is going to join us. And, of course, one of the stories we've got to ask Scott about, not only that huge Pacers win last night, 162-109 over Washington, but news today that the Memphis Grizzlies have fired Taylor Jenkins as their head coach, which is a little bit baffling because as a young coach, he has seen this team kind of rise in the NBA West. And at one point, they were the number one team in the NBA West a couple of seasons ago, and they've dealt with a lot of injuries. John Morant missed significant time, and I don't know what you could look at Taylor Jenkins and really say he's messed it up. I think the roster's been reconstructed, and the only thing that I've noticed, and this is more personal than anything that a lot of people would notice, but that John Conchar hasn't played nearly as much this season as he played in seasons past. But Memphis decided to move on from Taylor Jenkins along with a couple of the assistant coaches, so it's going to be a new coaching staff. And I don't know what they're expecting. What do they want the new coach to be that Taylor Jenkins wasn't? I just am baffled by this, and so we'll have to ask Scott Agness, what's the deal? What did Taylor Jenkins fail to accomplish that they were expecting of him as the coach of the Memphis Grizzlies? I mean, they're sitting in a pretty good position for the playoffs. They've dealt with a number of injuries this year.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Yeah, they're sitting in fifth in the West right now, but they're tied with the Los Angeles Lakers in record, 44-29. The Lakers just have the tiebreaker over them right now. But, yeah, good stuff there. Just kind of perusing what I've been able to find via articles and reports about this. This is the most interesting sentence I've found. The team believed that Jenkins had lost the locker room over the course of the season and that making a change now might mitigate how the Grizzlies finish the season.
Maybe I should text Conchar and ask him.
Hey, did Jenkins lose you?
Yeah. Hey, buddy, no pressure. Just let me know.
Give me the inside scoop. What went down in the locker room? But interesting stuff because, like you've said, you've just seen a lot of progression and development of players under Jenkins. So to imagine him losing the locker room, I never noticed anything like that before.
Well, and there's been a lot of player moves.
Yeah.
You know, they had a lot of players from the last couple of years that they've traded or let go away. And I don't know if they've not been happy with some of the moves that were made. I don't know exactly the inside the locker room type of story, but you just look at what you can observe from the outside, and, you know, Memphis is right there. They're a team that you consider to be a threat in the West. Certainly not a favorite, but a threat. So I don't know. We'll see what happens there.
Yeah, interesting stuff in the NBA.
And they don't have anybody to replace him. They're just going with an interim coach who actually was one of the assistants. He's the only one that kept his job.
Yeah, all of the other assistants under Jenkins were also let go today. So you mentioned, Tuomas Isalo will serve as the interim head coach.
But we'll talk to Scott Agness about that and about the Pacers. Tonight, Purdue takes on Houston. More Sweet 16 action after we had a couple of thrillers last night. One of them involved Arkansas's complete collapse down the stretch. A 13-point lead with 4.5 minutes left. That should have been absolutely safe. You know, this reminded me, and you probably remember this game, Adam, because you were in the booth, I think, that night, the Mastodons game against Youngstown State.
I do remember that. Yep.
The postseason, the postseason. It was the tournament. It was the Horizon League tournament.
Yep.
And the Mastodons were down 15 points with like 4 minutes left and had a furious rally and got to within 1 or 2 points?
Yeah, I believe it was 2, but real close.
And it was very similar, 13 points last night, and Arkansas just completely fell apart. They missed 7 of 8 shots down the stretch. They were 0 for 4 from 3. They missed the front end of a critical 1-and-1 with like 30 seconds left, and they had a turnover. And down the stretch, they allowed Texas Tech to make the big comeback, and Texas Tech ends up winning it in overtime over the Arkansas Razorbacks. So Texas Tech advances. The other exciting game last night, which really wasn't close, but it was a fun watch because Alabama was putting on a display. That was a clinic that they were putting on BYU. And Alabama rides Mark Sears' 10 of 16 performance from the three-point line, 34 points, 8 assists, and Alabama routs the BYU Cougars. Alabama, one of the most impressive numbers was they had 27 assists on their 35 made field goals and hit 25 three-point shots. They were 25 of 31 behind the 25 of 51. Did I say 31?
You did, and my eyes widened because
25
that would have been...
of 31. 25. I'm sitting here looking at 51, and I keep saying 31. It's Friday.
Yeah, we're checking out for the weekend.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere. Oh, look, it's here.
5 o'clock here. But no, I mean, it's just absolutely insane, and it looked like what we've come to expect from Alabama Crimson Tide basketball. A lot of three-pointers, and they went down for them last night.
So tonight we've got a lineup that includes Ole Miss versus Michigan State to start the night off, followed by Kentucky-Tennessee, which will be the second tip of the night and the first tip at Lucas Oil Stadium.
Yep.
I think... I'll see the end of that one.
Yeah, you might. Yeah,
I should.
I think so.
I should. I'll definitely see the end of that one because I'll be home by 9 o'clock, and so I'll see the end of that one. I might catch the end of Ole Miss, Michigan State, and then it's the late games are Michigan, Auburn, and Purdue, Houston. Purdue, Houston, scheduled for a 10:09 tip, but if you go by last night, it's going to be about 10:25 to 10:30 before Purdue actually gets underway. So
maybe grab an energy drink from the convenience store on your way home.
I need to get home from work, quick nap.
That too, yeah.
Off to the Gate Center after a 20-minute power nap. I'm excited about this because you don't often get a power conference team to agree to play on the road during the regular season. And so, that's the big compliment to Brenda Fries from Maryland, who brought her Maryland Terrapins here to town because it was convenient for Shayla Sellers and her player, Cheyenne Sellers, who are sisters, to get a chance to play against each other. And their dad, Brad Sellers, was able to make the trip over from Cleveland and watch the game. They had plenty of pictures. They had family on hand. But other than that, you just don't get power conference teams willing to come into the Gate Center. And so you've got a Big East opponent tonight in Butler that's at the Gate Center. It is the Super 16 round.
You nailed it.
Of the women's NIT. This is where the Mastodons had their road end a year ago. So if they get a win tonight, they will take one more step toward a championship. And unfortunately, last year, the team that beat them only beat them by 4. That was St. Louis, and that was at the Gate Center. And St. Louis went on to win the whole darn thing.
They sure did.
So that kind of made the Mastodons realize we were really close.
They were.
And so they're they've got a senior class. The next loss or the championship game is going to be their final game together. And they're a close-knit group. They're a great group of basketball players. You know, they got 4 great 3-point shooters, and then Jaslyn Limbo. They're 6'2", big inside. It's just it's fun basketball, and you've got nothing going on tonight. If let's put it this way, if you're right now listening to me on terrestrial radio, you didn't go on vacation. That means you're available tonight.
You're in our range.
You should be at the Gate Center. There's plenty of room for you. I mean, they had a good crowd, and they still had 600-700 tickets available to the game on Tuesday. So come on out. Butler and Purdue Fort Wayne tonight at the Gate Center with a 7 p.m. tip.
Going to be a lot of fun out there at the Gate Center tonight. By the way, I went back and looked back at that Purdue Fort Wayne men's against Youngstown State game. Jalen Jackson made a 2-point tip shot to bring it within 67-68 with 8 seconds left.
Yeah. I mean, and it was 15 points.
Yep. And then, unfortunately, there was a foul and then 2 free throws for Youngstown State.
Well, they awarded the 2 free throws, like, with no time on the clock.
Yeah.
Which was kind of silly because the game was over at that point. All it did was extend the margin of the final score, but that was basically a one-possession game.
Yeah, but good stuff.
260-447-8500. News from IU today.
Yeah.
That Bryson Tucker is entering the transfer portal. And it's not hard to track the number of players that Indiana currently has on their roster. That would be 0.
Yeah.
Unless you want to count Luke Goody, who's still waiting to get a ruling on his medical redshirt request that he's made to the NCAA. But other than that, there's nobody left. The lights have been turned off. The door has been closed. And the locker room is empty.
Yeah, and we got a question from our good listener, Ryan. He asked, should we be concerned? Should you be concerned about that?
No, usually it's about 2 weeks after the portal opens when you start seeing some of the names signed because first of all, there's visitations that take place. And so players have started to schedule when they're going to go visit, and then they do the negotiation. Of course, a lot of that is performed by agents now because these players have agents that represent them. And, we're hearing Ryan Conwell out of Xavier, who I think would be a perfect guy for IU. He can shoot the three. He's athletic. He's a 6'4" guard. He entered the portal, and I think Indiana should do everything they can. But the number that's being thrown around with Ryan Conwell is $1.5 million.
Wow. That's
and it could go as high as $2 million. I mean, I find that hard to believe because I don't think those kind of numbers are out there. But that's what I saw on Twitter, and of course, it's always true if it's on Twitter.
Yeah.
But those are the numbers. But regardless of what the number is, it's a guy that Indiana should be after because he would be the type of player that would be perfect with Darren DeVries' system.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But it's just going to be a matter of time of, like we've talked about it before, I'm sure DeVries already has a good quality list of players that he's focused on, and it's just a matter of time now.
But Bryson Tucker was kind of the lone holdout, sticking it out. And, I don't know if this was the result of any kind of meeting that he might have had with Coach DeVries. I'm not sure.
I don't know either. Or is it just another case of loyalty to Woodson? I don't know.
Well, he was the lone player that ended up joining the Indiana Hoosiers out of Mike Woodson's 2024 recruiting class. Of course, we know Liam McNeely reopened his recruitment and then ended up going to UConn.
Yep.
And so the only player that came in as a freshman last year was Bryson Tucker, and he now has entered the transfer portal.
He gone.
So Indiana does have some rebuilding, not a big concern. Like I said, they're going to have a couple of weeks of visits and negotiation. Players will start making their decisions probably, I would say, anytime after April 7th. Now, you're going to have a few early ones, so don't say, nobody was supposed to decide before. I mean, you might have a few here and there that decide. I mean, the Eric Mulder situation, he decided very quickly because it was very narrow of who he was looking for. It was going to come down to Drake or Iowa State is what I was told. And he wanted to be closer to home, and those two schools would have given his parents a chance to see him. And Iowa State made the offer. That was good enough. Iowa State over Drake, so he ended up committing to Iowa State. But a lot of the players, a lot of the big-name players are probably going to take a week or two, so probably April 7th or April 14th, those 2 weeks will probably be the pivotal weeks where we'll start to see some big names dropping off the board and making their decisions. And of course, they've got to have time to put together their hype video where they, make the big announcement. And oh, man.
That's the important part.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of those. I'm like, post a graphic if you must, but we don't need all the highlights and everything being put together to show that you're happy with where you've selected.
So no highlight videos for Brett.
But no, we'll probably get. So I don't think it's a big deal. And also, I'm sure that Coach DeVries has an idea of some of the coaches that he wants to bring in, and
sure.
I'm sure it's just a matter of a couple of days. And there might be coaches still coaching right now that he wants to talk to.
Maybe. Something to think about.
He might want to wait and see what happens with that Villanova job. Maybe there's a coach right now on the Maryland staff that become available if Maryland's coach Kevin Willard does take the Villanova job, which is what's being rumored, and he certainly didn't put any silencers on that rumor.
No, and we've also heard that they're not going to announce the coaching staff until it's entirely put together, so I think that's also another reason.
So he might have. Now, one of the guys that was projected to possibly be coming to Indiana took a head coaching job at the D1 level, and I can't remember exactly where, but they went to a head coaching job. Oh, at Oral Roberts.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
They went to Oral Roberts, and so there's one assistant that was projected to be following DeVries to Indiana that's not going to be joining him. But anyway, we'll keep an eye on that. All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, got to talk Pacers basketball. Huge win last night. Major disappointment 2 nights ago. What's ahead for the Pacers, and what does Scott Agness think about the firing of Taylor Jenkins as the head coach of Memphis? Kind of a surprise out of the NBA today. We'll talk that and more with Scott Agness coming up next right here on the Sports Rush on 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM.
This is Maria Marcasano, head women's basketball coach at Purdue Fort Wayne, and you're listening to the Sports Rush with Brett Rump on 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM.
Adding a little juice to this game tonight, Maria Marcasano starred at Butler in college, so she's taking on her alma mater. Also, Austin Parkinson, the coach of Butler, used to coach at IUPUI, and Maria Marcasano was on his staff at one point in time, about a decade ago. So a lot of connections here with Butler at Purdue Fort Wayne tonight. In fact, speaking of that, Scott, I know you do women's basketball at IU Indy. Did you do games when Austin Parkinson was the coach down there?
Yeah, absolutely. I just completed my 10th season at IU Indy, and to make it even more, over the weekend I broadcast the Butler WNIT game to advance to play tonight. And if Purdue Fort Wayne had not won and had been Old Dominion, I think Butler would have hosted, and I probably would have had that call again here tonight. It's an undermanned team with Butler. They have 3 players that went into the portal, so they're down to 7. A couple players who didn't even play much during the season, but I loved hearing that bump coming back from break because Coach Marcasano's done a phenomenal job up there, and they're having the season they deserve. Yeah,
had a great win over Old Dominion the other night. Rusty in the first half is the best way to explain it because they had 2 weeks off, but second half got back to the type of basketball we've seen all year from this group.
They're not just getting wins, they're blowing them out. You watch the Horizon League final and this. It was fun to hear John Nolan on the call the last game. It's unbelievable what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a lot of fun, and it's awesome, too, that Butler is coming into the Gates Center, and the WNIT is kind of rewarding Purdue Fort Wayne with the home game. I would imagine Butler would have bid for the home game. I don't think they have anything at Hinkle right now, but we're certainly glad to have it here in the Summit City coming up tonight. Well, last night, Pacers were on the road, and of all games for the Pacers to have this type of night, back-to-back on the road against a team that you're supposed to beat, so you could think that maybe they come out a little flat after an emotional loss to the Lakers. Man, did you see this coming, what we saw last night from the Pacers?
No, nothing like this. Emotional is the right word, because that was a lot last night. It ruined what would have been a perfect 5-0 homestand. I think they had won 8 straight home games as a whole. You bring the Lakers, it's always one of the best tickets each year for season ticket holders with wherever LeBron is playing. And so it was one of the best atmospheres over there at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, and they just couldn't finish the job. And then just shows you the NBA, the Pacers bounced back, set franchise records for scoring. On the other side, it was the Lakers then going to Chicago and have maybe the wackiest finish I've ever seen. I encourage anyone to check that out, because they were down and scored 3 big shots in like 10 seconds to win the game. Incredible.
Yeah, we broke that down a little bit earlier in the show, where we talked about the fact that you're in the last 20 seconds, 5 points down, and you hit back-to-back threes. One of them was a turnover by LeBron on a bad pass in the backcourt. And then the Lakers took the lead back. And it still was a half-court miracle from Josh Giddey that ended up winning the game for Chicago. That was a crazy – I said, if you had money on the money line on that game, you probably ended up in the emergency room last night, because that was absolutely insane, the back and forth emotions. All right, Scott, so I want you to give us kind of a synopsis of where the Pacers stand right now as far as a playoff picture, because as we start to turn the calendar to April, it's time to look at the stretch run, the final couple of weeks of the season. Where are the Pacers right now, and what does the schedule look like ahead of them?
Yeah, so the interesting thing is just that they're kind of right in that slot where 3 is not out of the question. They're 2.5 games back, but the Knicks are a little bit beat up. The Knicks haven't been playing particularly well. They lost their last game. And then the crazy thing many listeners may not be aware of is we've actually seen Detroit surpass Milwaukee to overtake the 5th spot. So right now it's Pacers 4, Pistons 5, Bucks 6. The Pacers are at home for the majority of their schedule the rest of the way. And even things that played out probably well to their liking here that maybe they didn't like in August was 2 of their final 3 games are against Cleveland, the top team in the East. And they likely and almost inevitably will have the number 1 pick locked up at that point. How do they choose to play those games? Do they rest? Do they sit players? Certainly could help the Pacers' chances there late of piling up just a couple more wins. So I think the Pacers are feeling good about where they are right now. They're in the driver's seat. The only significant notable injury is one that they've had all year, basically, with Isaiah Jackson. Tyrese Halliburton still dealing with back, groin-type pain and frustration there. So they're not trying to play him too heavy a minutes, trying to keep him around 30 minutes. So that's something to keep in mind here. But the first challenge and the next challenge is very tough at OKC. But otherwise, I think the Pacers are all focused on the next several weeks of playing their best basketball going into the postseason, Brett.
When you talk about the 4 seed versus the 3 seed, it could be the difference of Boston or Cleveland in a route to get to the NBA Finals. And I know it's looking way ahead, but in that matchup, who do you think matches up, the Pacers match up better against? Because we saw it last year with Boston. Cleveland kind of the up-and-comer, but they have an unbelievable season. What team would scare you more as far as a Pacers matchup in a series in the East?
Yeah, for me, I'd go with the Celtics, and here's why. Typically what we see in the postseason, not only do players with winning resumes win, well, Celtics are coming off one, but where are they dominant? It's on the wing. What is the Pacers' biggest issue? Not just this year, last decade. Wings. They don't have anyone that can truly guard that 6'8" wing as Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. You could throw Drew Holiday in that mix. Is Porzingis healthy enough if he's rolling? I just think they have so many top-level players that go against the Pacers' weakness. Even though, sure, Nembhard and Nesmith have been solid, they don't have that elite defender there. So that scares me more, even though Cleveland, man, what they are doing just deserves all the attention because they're setting franchise records for wins, and they definitely are a formidable opponent. But for me, it's the Celtics. What about you?
Yeah, I would rather see Cleveland. So I guess I'm with you because
Sure.
Boston's got that experience. They've got that confidence. They took care of the Pacers. You could say with ease. It wasn't as easy as probably the 4-0 sweep, but I just think getting a team that lacks that experience. Cleveland's had a better regular season, but in some ways I see Cleveland as last year's Pacers, and so I think I would rather see Cleveland. It's just a better record for Cleveland during the regular season than last year's Pacers. But it's that up and coming team that seems to have found their star roster and their building and still putting pieces together. I think I would rather see the Pacers take on Cleveland if it came to that. I do have to ask you though. It is NCAA tournament time. Are you a bracket guy?
Not much anymore. I mean, I do fill one out each year just because you kind of have to, but much like fantasy football, it's one more thing to worry about, and I much rather go into games just rooting for a good game in a close one rather than, do I have the right pick for tonight?
How did your bracket do? Have you peeked at it?
Brett, I haven't looked at it since I said it 15 minutes before the first game.
Oh, so you did do one for fun, but you have no idea how your bracket is actually doing.
Yeah, I should probably check it out. But yeah, I think you always have to fill one out, but I'm not too much in tune to it.
Well, I think a lot of people that had brackets that they felt were busted early are probably making a comeback here late because a lot of the top seeds are the ones advancing. Who do you like to win the whole thing?
Initially, I would have said Duke, but the Cooper Flag injury, and we didn't know at that time, right, how significant is he going to miss a game or two or what have you, that really concerned me and all that. So I think I had them lose maybe before the Final Four just because I figured, that would probably be how it plays out. I couldn't go with Houston with Kelvin Sampson, so I think I ultimately selected Florida. But I actually need to go double check and see what I picked there.
Not a bad pick. I think I had Florida, Auburn. I took Duke in the Final Four, and Cooper Flag looks okay, especially last night when he torched Arizona. So I think those three make it, and I can't make a pick for the other region because I'm still holding on to hope that Purdue can find a way to get through at Lucas Oil Stadium. I think they've got a really difficult hill to climb, but we'll see. Houston tonight, we'll see what happens.
They do, and I'll be there. It's going to be a blast just because all those teams outside of Houston, all in driving distance. It should feel like a Purdue semi-home game, and then Kentucky, man, and Tennessee fans, I've seen a lot of their fans out here today eager for tonight's matchup, so that'll be fun at Lucas Oil.
Yep, appreciate it, Scott. Thanks so much. Have a great time at the games tonight.
I will. Thanks, Brett.
Yep, that is Scott Agness joining us here on the Sports Rush. Of course, Scott Agness from the Fieldhouse Files. If you want to follow what's happening with the Fever and the Pacers, he's got great coverage at the Fieldhouse Files. You can get a subscription for basically a one of those lunch meals per month. It's very reasonable, so it's always worthwhile, especially if you're a fan of either team, because he'll give you multiple articles each day during the course of the season. Right now, it's a little quieter with the Fever or with the Pacers, but still getting a story or two every day or two. So it's still plenty of content for you to keep up on.
Well, yeah, especially when they drop 160 plus points in a regulation game.
Yep, and all the storylines with the game against the Lakers the other night.
Yeah.
260-447-8500. Questions, comments, or suggestions? We'd love to hear from you on the Parkview Sports Medicine text line, 260-447-8500. Don't forget, if you miss any of the show, you can always keep up by listening to us on our podcast, and that's available wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. All you have to do, whether it's Spotify or whether it's Apple, you just go in and search for the Sports Rush with Brett Rump, and you'll be able to find us easily. Make sure you click all the buttons to like us and to subscribe for free. You can follow us. And then you can get notifications when we post new podcasts. But we put each show up usually within 30 to 45 minutes after the show ends. So you can always go back and listen to what part you might have missed. You can go back and listen to what part you might have enjoyed. You can You can choose. We break it down hour by hour, so it's very easy to listen to the Sports Rush on demand wherever you listen to your favorite podcast.
It's all right there. Go check it out.
We'll take a break. We'll come back. Hey, big night last night, and if you followed me, yeah, you made some money. I'll have to make some picks for tonight. That'll come up next here on the Sports Rush on 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM. Big game tonight at the Gates Center. Hope everybody is making plans to get out to Purdue Fort Wayne tonight as the Mastodons welcome from the Big East the Butler Bulldogs. In-state rivalry, Maria Marchesano's alma mater. It's where she played. It's a coach that she coached with, as Austin Parkinson had gone from IUPUI, now IU Indy, over to Butler about three or four seasons ago. And so it's going to be a lot of storylines tonight. And, of course, one of them will be if the Mastodons get the victory and Cleveland State can beat Duquesne tonight, both games taking place at 7 o'clock. After the game, it'll be Purdue Fort Wayne versus Cleveland State, but where will that game be? Can't imagine they would make the Mastodons go to Cleveland State after the Mastodons just routed Cleveland State in the Horizon League tournament in the semifinals. The Mastodons have already won 2 of 3 head-to-head against Cleveland State, and the Mastodons have a significantly better net ranking than Cleveland State. So I would think if both teams have bid on this as a home game that the Mastodons should be awarded the home contest. I would think.
You would think so, and you would hope so because, like you said, you want to get that success rewarded throughout the season.
And the other factor here is that it looks like the game is going to be played on Sunday, at least according to the posts that we see. There is a TBD versus TBD, and the only teams that haven't played in the Super 16 round would be the Cleveland State Duquesne game and the Purdue Fort Wayne Butler game. And so it looks like the game is already set to be played on Sunday, and you only have one day off in between, so there's pressure on whatever team that has to travel. My guess, just a guess, that the teams, or at least somebody in the admin, probably already knows what the expectation would be if they get the win tonight.
Yep, but got to get the win over the Butler Bulldogs tonight first at the Gates Sports Center tonight.
So feel free to text me if you're listening and you happen to know. I'll be sure to share it. No, we'll find out right after the game if the Mastodons can beat Butler tonight. But 26 and counting for a school program record number of wins in the season. All right, so last night yesterday, actually, on the show, I told you some bets I felt pretty good about last night. Well, here's what I said, then we'll check the results. I'll go with Arkansas. You get 5.5 points. I'll take Arkansas.
You said you had the Duke-Arizona game possibly being a 90 to 80-something game?
If I had to guess a final score, I'd say like 92 to 84, something like that.
You might want to grab that over. It's sitting at 154.5.
BYU, Alabama a 4.5 point favorite, and I took Alabama. All right, so I predicted a score. First of all, Arkansas covered.
Yes, they did.
They lost, but they covered.
Yep.
Lost it in overtime, so I won that one. And then I took the over on the Duke-Arizona game.
Yep.
And I said 92 to 84?
Yeah, around there, yeah.
So I picked an 8-point game, 92 to 84. The actual final was 100 to 93. It was a 7-point game.
And the over, yeah.
Well, and the over-under was like 150 something.
Yeah,
so
it was smashed, yeah.
Yeah, so it was like, oh, that's an easy one.
Yep.
And then I took Alabama to cover, and they won it by 25 points. So good night last night. Okay, so let's look at what we've got tonight. Not that I'm doing this spontaneously. I seriously have not even looked at the lines.
I've got them here for you.
Michigan State, 3.5. My gut says go with Sparty.
Me too.
I'll take the 3.5. Then I kind of like the under though, 144.5. I could see that being like a 70 to 66 type of game.
A little bit more defensive, yeah.
So I kind of like the under of 144.5. Then you've got Kentucky, Tennessee. That under-over is 144.5. I tend to lean over on that game, but Tennessee's a 4.5-point favorite. Kentucky's beaten them twice this year. I cannot refuse the 4.5 points they're willing to give me to take Kentucky, so I'm taking Kentucky.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a close game, state rivalry, so yeah, I don't like the spread.
Auburn 8.5 over Michigan. Give me the Wolverines.
All right, yeah.
I'm taking points. I don't think Auburn's playing their best basketball. I think they peaked early in the season. They've played well through the SEC, but I don't think they're playing their best. And so I'll take Michigan and take 8.5 points. And Houston's 8.5-point favorites over Purdue. Man, that's a lot of points when the over/under is only 133.5. So I think I'll take the points with Purdue. I'll take 8.5 with Purdue.
Yeah, I think it'll be close enough for both the Auburn-Michigan game and Houston-Purdue that the underdog will cover the spread.
News today from the transfer portal. Imagine that.
What?
Yeah, Ryan Conwell transferring from Xavier. He's an Indiana product, went to high school in Indianapolis, and, of course, a lot of Hoosiers fans kind of excited about seeing his name. Of course, he was a key part of that Indiana State squad a couple of years ago. And they say, come back home. Come back to Indiana.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a few teams probably very highly interested in Ryan Conwell. 6'4" guard, can really shoot it from beyond the arc, but he also can attack with the dribble. I like him as a Hoosier because then there'd be a player on the roster because today Indiana learned that Bryson Tucker, the freshman that came in last year, is going to enter the portal.
Yep, he's gone. So Indiana officially down to 0 players unless Luke Goody is able to get his medical year and he wants to come back and play for the Hoosiers another season. So as of right now, with Bryson Tucker out, we're down to 0 and hoping for a Ryan Conwell.
Yep, and, a few others. Of course, Tucker DeVries, be great to know that he's going to have another year officially and that he can become a Hoosier. We know that he'll play at Indiana if he plays. I'm having a tough time now.
You are. I know. I'm just looking at some of the other schools that people are...
Hydraulics have given out.
Looking at some of the other schools they're mentioning in regards to Ryan Conwell, I've been seeing Ohio State. I've been seeing the Oregon Ducks. Obviously, the Indiana Hoosiers are amongst the list. Also checking out the Texas Longhorns, but a good couple Big Ten schools in the mix for Conwell, potentially.
Yeah, I would think with the system that Coach DeVries is going to run, I think he would be comfortable playing 1 at home and 2 with that system at IU if it's the best offer, or at least competitive with the other offers.
That's something you always got to look out for. How much money can you throw in the bank for me?
All right, so let's talk about tonight's schedule.
Yeah.
And who plays who and when they play, because tonight you'll start off the night with Ole Miss, Michigan State. That was one of the games I just am not that excited about. I don't mind going to the Gates Center and missing Ole Miss, Michigan State. But I am kind of excited about Kentucky, Tennessee, but I'll be able to see most of that second half.
Right.
Because it's not going to start until about 7:40. That means the second half will get underway close to 9 o'clock, and
You'll be able to see the ending, question.
I'll be home close to 9 o'clock, so I'll see most of the second half, if not all of the second half. And then you've got Michigan-Auburn, which is really, for me, the game of the night.
It should be a good one. You know, you've got Dusty May taking the Wolverines into what a lot of people think, like you said, are not playing that well, the Auburn Tigers, but maybe they get into shape tonight. But
of course, Michigan didn't necessarily play great down the stretch either.
No, they've had some close scares.
But I think they can at least keep it within 6 or 7 points. And then Purdue, Houston.
Yeah, it's going to be a case of if Purdue can overcome all the traps and tribulations of the Houston Cougars defense.
Purdue has to take care of the basketball. They can't have a high turnover number. I would put the turnover number at 11 or less. I think if it gets over 12, it starts to put the Boilermakers in some trouble.
Yeah, Braden Smith.
And then the other thing is going to be the rebounding.
Yes.
They've got to be able to rebound. And so it's going to be very important that guys like Heidi and and Caleb First are able to help Trey Kaufman-Wren on the glass, and it might even take the secondary level of rebounding with Fletcher Lawyer and Braden Smith. And then the final point that I think is going to be important tonight is Purdue's going to have to hit three-point shots because Houston will crowd you in the paint, but that also gives you an opportunity for some kick-out threes. And if Fletcher Lawyer and Heidi and Braden Smith can get some kickouts, they've got a chance to hit some shots. And when you start putting threes up against Houston, a team that's generally not going to play a game in the 80s, and that gives you a real advantage. So I think for Purdue, it's take care of the basketball, rebound with Houston, and hit your three-point shots. Do those three things. Purdue's got a shot to win this game. If you don't, then all of Indiana is going to be upset to see Kelvin Sampson advance into the Elite Eight.
Yeah, could potentially see Kelvin Sampson and Kentucky if you're not careful.
Yeah. Nobody will show up from Indiana if it's Kentucky versus Houston as the championship.
Nope.
All right, we'll take a timeout. We'll come back, wrap it up for this week with the Sports Rush on 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM. Welcome back to the Sports Rush. Once again tonight, we hope that you join us at the Gates Center. I'll be out there for Mastodons women's basketball. It is the WNIT Super 16 as the Mastodons take on Butler, Coach Maria Marcasano's alma mater. Tip-off at 7 o'clock. With a win, the Mastodons will add to their program record victory total for the season and make it 27-8. And they'll advance to the quarterfinals where they'll have a matchup against the winner of Cleveland State and Duquesne. Coming up tonight, NCAA tournament coverage. In fact, we'll be joining it at the top of the hour. It includes Purdue-Houston, which we'll have with the Purdue Radio Network starting at 10 o'clock tonight. Also tomorrow, don't forget, the Best of the Sports Rush wakes you up at 8. Talking sports with Jim Shevlin at 9 a.m. Golf with Jay Delsing at 10. And then you've got the NCAA tournament tomorrow evening, Sunday. We've got NCAA Tournament Elite 8 coverage, and if Purdue wins tonight, we'll have the Purdue Radio Network right here at 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM. Big thanks to Greg Rakestraw for joining us. Also thanks to Scott Agness from the Fieldhouse Files. Hope you enjoy your sports weekend. Plenty of it this weekend. Hope to see you out at the Gates Center for the Mastodons and the Butler Bulldogs. Enjoy it. We'll be back on Monday. It's the Sports Rush on 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM.